We seek the truth.
Would you be handing your resignation to the Minister of Culture tomorrow, sir?
No, I will not.
The leader of the opposition, we have accused your government, sir, of using the Grenada Development Bank to facilitate the financing of personal loans for certain government ministers.
The other side is in no position to talk about those issues, and I will leave it there.
We discover new perspectives.
You know his leadership style, and so many are saying, why are you coming now to talk about those issues?
Now is the time to speak. You have the right to decide who will take over.
And you met with Dr. Mitchell, and perhaps you might want to confirm what that meeting was about in your response. But
Dr. Mitchell, like myself, are Grenadians.
We ask the right questions.
why was there no report on the work done of the commission? And how is this new committee different from the commission that was initially established back in 2022? So who are these elements that are using you?
I'm disappointed in my political leader.
And why is that animating those political conversations now?
This is a very interesting question.
The Bub Reports with Dr. Kellan Bub. Thought-provoking, truthful, unbiased, and truly original reporting.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to this special primetime edition of the Bub Report. I'm your humble host, Dr. Kellan Bub. Now, as the new national party prepares for its first post-2022 convention, all eyes will be on the outcome of the high-stakes event that will see the pivotal transition of leadership from Dr. the Right Honorable Keith Mitchell, who has been at the helm of the party for the last 35 years. Now, Dr. Mitchell's stewardship of the new national party and head of the cabinet as Prime Minister of Grenada have been a significant mainstay in the national community in its post-revolutionary history. And his exit stage right from the spotlight of Grenadian politics has certainly occupied the minds of many Grenadians since the NNP's loss at the polls. Now, as it is the case in every other Caribbean democracy, leadership transitions have become fraught with intrigue and debate about the philosophical directions successor leaders may take from their predecessors. 40 years is certainly a long time in public service. And whatever we may think of Dr. Mitchell, his contribution to Grenada's post-independence path of development will be one for the history books. The lead up to this convention, like other political conventions where leadership is an issue, produce intense debate among opposing candidates as well as those who support them. And in the context of this NNP leadership transition, we might be seeing the same features being played out. Now, joining us for this primetime conversation is Mr. Roland Bhola, perhaps the longest-serving General Secretary of the new National Party since its founding in 1984, who took time from his busy schedule to make sense of the issues animating the lead-up to the party's 40th anniversary convention to be held at the St. Andrew's Anglican Secondary School, incidentally, which is also the constituency of the Honorable Emmeline Pear, one of the contestants vying for the leadership of the party. And at this time, we're happy to be joined by the General Secretary of the new National Party, Mr. Roland Bhola. Mr. Bhola, I believe this is your very first appearance on the Bub Report. I do know that Sundays are a very difficult time because you are a man of faith, but this particular Sunday will be even more difficult because of the convention. So we were able to carve out some time to speak with you in advance of the convention because we believe speaking to the General Secretary, who is one of the chief architects of organizing such an important event, is a critical conversation to have. So Mr. Bhola, welcome, sir.
Thank you. Thank you very much for having me. Thank you for welcoming me. And it is a pleasure to speak with you and later on, I guess, your listening public. So thank you very much, Mr. Dr. Bob. I must get that in my head.
That is totally fine, sir. But Mr. Bhola, before we get into the conversation, I do like to know my guest, since it's your first time appearing on the Bub Report. Outside of politics, outside of being the MP for St. Andrew Northeast as well as General Secretary, what is the best job you ever had?
Well, when you say outside of being the MP, I hope you are not talking about this present period. I was the MP for 3 terms, but presently,
Yes.
the Honorable Kate
Lewis is the MP. Yes.
Is the MP. So I have now been out of party representation for the people for 2 election cycles since I have, bowed out of that segment of the politics. I'm still in the politics by virtue of being in the party, being the general secretary. I've done several other jobs prior to getting involved in politics, inclusive of, I think, the other job that I had the most lengthy service would have been as a custom officer. So I was a custom officer for 5+ years. I'd worked with a private company after leaving the customs. They were a wine importing company called Nuts Out Trading that imported wines from Italy, France, Australia, South Africa, California, a number of different places, and supplied large supermarkets and restaurants, hotels, and so forth. Prior to all of that, after leaving secondary school and sending applications out, as maybe the norm in most third world countries, and you send applications to several places and not being able to get the job of your choice, or sometimes any job at all, or any credibly respond. I worked as a bus conductor in my very early days. You would know, Kellan, the minivans, the minibuses that traverse our roads in Grenada, and you have someone, as we say, pulling the door. So for a couple of months in my early life,
yes,
did that. I'd worked with the famous Rivers Rum for a couple of years as well, as the sales personnel and as a person in the administrative office, dealing with NIS for the workers and things like that, for a couple of years. And it was while I was there in Rivendell that I got the opportunity through a CARICOM government scholarship to go to Jamaica, where I did some studies in agricultural marketing and management and then returned to Grenada from there.
Absolutely. And one final question, one final icebreaker question, sir. If you could eat one meal for the rest of your life, what would it be and why? And you cannot say oil down, because I think oil down is a default position.
Well, we consider oil down to be our national dish, but I can tell you, my one meal, if that's the only meal I can have again, would be a good callaloo soup.
Callaloo soup. Why do you like callaloo? Is it because the callaloo bush is easy to pick? And as a farmer?
It's not because it's easy to pick, and it's not because it's green. I think it's a pretty nutritious food, easy to make. And I'll tell you a secret. My wife does an excellent callaloo soup. I mean, she could never give me enough of it when she cooks a callaloo soup. And as a result, she tried to do a callaloo soup at least once per week so I can have my favorite meal.
Well, that is good to know. On my next visit to Grenada, sir, I will definitely come up to the area and have some of your wife's callaloo soup.
I hope you can. I know she will accommodate you.
Yes, absolutely, sir. Now, Mr. Bhola, now let us get into the convention. Of course, you as General Secretary, I suspect that this is a very busy time for you. So I appreciate the time that you're taking to meet with us. I know that you also made other media appearances, which I've been doing my homework on in order to prepare myself for this evening's conversation. But Mr. Bhola, we want to begin by talking about the need for the screening committee that was put in place for this convention, and what in the party's constitution dictates the need for such a committee. I do remember former Minister Anthony Boson, when he was also chairman, he spoke about this leadership transition committee. So I'm not too sure if that has been subsumed into a screening committee, but can you talk about the reasoning behind having such a committee in place?
Well, let me just touch on that. It has never been named. Some people refer to it as a screening committee, which at this point in time really is what they're doing. But it is the exact same committee that was put in place as the transition committee. And it became necessary, and we felt that from an executive standpoint, that we should do it because, as you have alluded to, not directly, but by referring to Dr. Mitchell as the longest serving political leader of the party for approximately 35 years or a little bit more, he has been the political leader. And every time you have a convention, all of the position, inclusive of political leader, becomes null and void on convention day when it is time to vote, and every single position has to face the challenge of getting people nominated, seconded, and sometime in a runoff by the delegates to see who would win the position. It has so happened that Dr. Mitchell continuously for almost 35 or more years been nominated and voted in unopposed, never voted in, because since he was unopposed, nobody else challenged the position of leadership. There needed not to be a vote for him. When it became the time and he said, well, this is it, I will no longer put myself up for the position. If nominated, I will decline. We realized that we had to find new people. And there was a lot of buzz and people had interest. One of the very first persons to have expressed their interest for getting the position was the Honorable Peter David. But we were never sure how do we go about doing it. Would he be the only one? A lot of other people were saying that they have interest. If you have several people, how do you deal with that come convention day? And after several months of discussions, we felt, and as you said, from as early as when the Honorable Anthony Bosom was the chairman, that we should put in place what is called a transition committee, meaning that you would put a few heads together so they can plan a strategy, a way. What do we do first? What do we do second? How do we do this thing without creating too much conflict and confusion? And that brought rise and then implementation of a transition committee, which now is in its final stage of work that has to be done of getting someone nominated and selected as political leader.
So, but Mr. Bhola, as a follow-up to this question on the screening committee, if other positions on the national executive are usually declared vacant at the convention, how is it that you're not allowing the position of political leader to be also declared vacant and allow anyone who wants to offer themselves up for that position to, on convention day, offer themselves up for the position as leader as the other positions on the executive?
The only thing different that we are doing, and I think that's where you get it wrong or you're making a mistake, the position of political leader will become vacant on nomination, on
convention. Yeah, on the 15th, yes?
Yeah. The only thing different about political leader, as an executive and having spoken to a number of learned individuals around, the belief is that the position of political leader is so critical and important to the life of a political party and to running the political party and to the success of the political party, especially in the run-up and during a general elections, that we should not just leave that position to chance. And I know the next question will be, where do we get the constitutional rights from? The Constitution is silent on that. The Constitution has never called for a committee like that. The Constitution doesn't say there should be. Yes? But being the guiding force for the party after the convention, because remember, your executive would have been chosen in a convention with the power and authority to guide, to run, to make bylaws, and to do the things that are necessary to ensure that the party runs smoothly until there's another convention. The executive took the decision, not just solely, but as I've said, speaking to other learned personnel, and the was that it would be in the best interest of the party to have a process set out. And here is what the process did. The process said, during the period November, I think it was November 20th to November 29th, all persons who had an interest in being the political leader of the new national party has an opportunity within that span of time to express their interest in writing to the party. So I, Dr. Kellan Bob, learning of this, or however you want to phrase it, is hereby making my intention known. We don't want to say apply for the position, because you are not really applying. You are expressing interest. And that went on. And there were only 2 persons expressing such an interest within the time frame given. It was Honorable NNP and Honorable Peter David. The next stage of the work, as the process rolls out, was to have an interview with those people. We were then thinking, maybe you may get 7, maybe 10, maybe 12, because it's a coveted position that a lot of people have been talking, but you didn't see the action in terms of the expressing the interest. So if you had that number, you wanted to go through, you wanted to interview and ask specific questions. There were 5 categories from which you would ask the questions. And based on the responses, every question carries a certain weight. And then you would determine from among the many people who have expressed interest, those who scored the highest based on what the interviewers got from the interviewee. And these were the ones who would have been brought forward on the convention table or on convention day to say, these are the 3, these are the 5, these are the 4 that has made the pass mark. And that's where the idea of expecting the numbers to have been more was part of the reason why the transition committee was put in place.
But Mr. Bhola, one follow-up on that, and then of course we have to get on to the other questions. Does that sort of when you say you have a screening committee, doesn't that set up sort of a gatekeeping process that let's suppose somebody scores very low on whatever the metrics are, or whatever the metrics is for that particular committee, that you're then going to say to that person, well, you scored low on this, so therefore you cannot put yourself up for contention at the convention floor. Does that not create a perception that there is some kind of gatekeeping that is happening here that's not even in the Constitution, according to you, because you said the Constitution is silent?
Yes, you are very correct on that, Dr. Bob. And that's a contentious issue that has been asked and dealt with time and time again from since the committee got in place.
Right.
We try to do something that is open and above board, not wanting to prevent anyone. Now, I just tell you, our other party in Grenada, leading up to the last convention, and I'm saying it just for public knowledge. Someone has told me before, you can't compare, and I'm not comparing in any way. And I'm not saying that whatever one party does, the other one has to do it. I'm just saying that leading up to the convention of the NDC, the last convention, well, not the last one, the convention in which they chose.
That's Mr. Deacon Mitchell, the Honorable Deacon Mitchell?
The Honorable Deacon Mitchell, as the political leader. They actually went out, they had a team going out and lobby with persons. There were several other persons within the party who had an interest, who was expressing interest, who was prepared to put their interest in writing. And they lobbied and said, please don't, we want this man to be, and we provide you with another position. All kind of promises were made. But we felt we did not want to do it that way. While, yes, the Constitution doesn't speak clearly on what we're doing, we said, look, let's make it open, let people express their interest, but we will go through a process of elimination before you go to the convention floor. So it may not sit well with a lot of people, and we agree with that. It may even get challenged. We are prepared for that. But since we did not have a prescribed way of doing the transition for over 35 years, we felt at this time that was the best we could have done in terms of trying to select what may possibly be the best. And we may never get the best. By this process, we may probably eliminate the best. I don't know. And we don't know. But we at least wanted to do something that had a semblance of giving, one, open opportunity for those who had an interest, but two, ensuring that you did not just have a series of nominations coming from the floor from the delegates of personnel who probably do not have the necessary qualities that is in keeping with a political leader.
Now, let us talk about those. We are at the time of the airing of this conversation that we're having now. We will be 3 days before the actual convention. Have you conducted those interviews with the two interested parties, the Honorable Emmeline Pear, as well as the Honorable Peter David? And when
that was done today.
That interview was done today. Okay, so when would those? You mean with both of them? Both interviews were done.
Yes.
Okay, so the question is, when will the committee make their results known to the two potential contenders who are not even, I'm not even sure if they consider themselves contenders at this point, because they don't have a confirmation as to whether or not they are in for the goal. So what's the next step there for them?
The Friday evening they would know, and the general public would know by Friday.
By Friday, okay. Will that be in the form of a press conference, or what?
Announcement, press release, some media engagement. I am not sure exactly what format, but yes, it will be made public.
Now, Mr. Bhola, another issue that has been animating conversation has to do with the constituency delegates. Now, what is the convention? We're speaking of convention, but what is the conventional practice, if you will? How are constituency delegates chosen? Is that a subjective process, or do you follow a particular formulaic process, organizational grassroots process based on your polling division allocations of paid members of the party? What does that look like?
It's very clear in the Constitution how delegates are selected. Where do they come from? So in the case of a general council, you would have one delegate from every polling division within a constituency, and you would have 3 delegates from the constituency branch. In the case of a convention, you would have 2 delegates from every polling division and 5 from the constituency branch. That is absolutely clear in the Constitution. What is not clear is the method by which you go about and choose. And so normal practice over the last 40 years of existence of the party is that whoever is in charge at the time of the political work within the constituency, be it a parliamentary rep, be it a caretaker, be it a political leader, as we recently was calling some of the people who was in charge, but that name has been changed, and I will tell you why. They are the persons normally responsible for or being responsible for choosing the delegate. Now, over the last 40 years, different constituencies have done that process differently. In some instances, there would be the involvement of the constituency branch, sometimes the chairpersons of the political, the PD groups. They may be called into a small meeting and the choices are made there. There are other times in some constituencies where the person who leads the political work will do the selection and share it with a team of people whom they would choose. There are times when different people and different PDs were asked, do you have any suggestions? So there is no one prescribed way, because the Constitution is not absolutely clear on who does the selection, but it tells you how to get the people and where they should come from.
So what I hear you saying here is that the caretakers or the caretaker or the constituency leads, or I know that,
Or
and
the
we're going to get to that.
parliamentary rep, the person
Or the
who leads
parliamentary
the
representative, right?
Yeah.
That they may have some role in procuring that particular list, but at the same time, it's also very subjective. So perhaps, is that something, perhaps, as General Secretary, reflecting on what my limitation is, that something that you might be taking up to perhaps reform?
That is something that can be taken up. I don't know in the next round, in the new dispensation, that Roland Bhola would again be General Secretary. It is all up to the delegates on the day. Or whoever that is. It's definitely an area that we need to do some constitutional reform on, to make it much clearer in the Constitution, to prepare and bring forward to the General Council the need to have that adjusted, to have the Constitution amended, so it becomes much clearer for future conventions, that you don't have the same kind of haul and pull like you're having now, and different people saying different things, and some people saying they didn't see the names and it's not published. It is not customary that you publish your list of delegates. That is not a public document. It is not for the public consumption until probably.
Well, it may not be for public consumption, but perhaps I suppose the card carrying paid members of the party, is that not something that they ought to have access to?
Well, it's card bearing paid members of the party who can be delegates. They're the only ones who can be delegates. If you are not a card bearing member, if you have never registered with the party, and even if you are registered but you are not up to date with your party rules, you cannot be selected to be a delegate. And the norm is that when they are selected, we go through the register, which we have in the party, constituency by constituency, of the members. You would check to ensure, first and foremost, that that person who has been selected by a specific constituency is registered, and secondly, that they are up to date with the payment. That has always been the norm. There's never been a case where there was a demand from any constituent, paid member or not, to say, I need to see the list of delegates for my constituency. For all the many years that I've been General Secretary, we have never had a request, or that has never been a demand.
Now, Mr. Bhola, we are in possession of a letter from one Mr. Prescott Swan. I'm not too sure if you responded to Mr. Swan, but Mr. Swan is a stalwart of the New National Party. And we are in possession of this letter in which he said, I'm quoting from the letter, he said, quote, the annual convention is coming up soon, and from all appearances, the same on, no, well, let me actually go from the start. He said he writes as deputy political lead for St. Patrick East. I refer to my letter to you dated 19 September 2024, in which I expressed concern for the refusal to apply the democratic process in the selection of delegates for the General Council meeting that was held earlier this year. To date, I have had no response from you. However, I learned that you were instructed not to bring the letter to the attention of the executive, whose instruction did not come from the national executive. The annual convention is coming up soon, and from all appearances, the same undemocratic process will be used, if not already used, for the selection of delegates for the convention. And he says this, while the constitution of the party does not spell out the method, something that you just articulated, the method by which delegates are to be selected, the court of law would ask, what has been the practice? The constitution of the party is very clear on its positive position for democracy. Let me again point out that Bertrand John, the political lead for St. Patrick's East, shows no respect for the democratic process. Since becoming the lead person in that constituency, he held one meeting, and that was in May of this year, when asked to convene a meeting of the advisory body to set up by the executive. And then he goes on to talk about people who are coming from other constituencies coming into St. Patrick East to talk about delegates. So, Mr. Bhola, two questions based on this correspondence. Have you responded to, that's Mr. Swan, the concerns that he raised? And how do you respond to the charge here that the party is engaging in on democratic practices in relation to the delegates list, or the delegate selection?
Let me take them as they come.
Yes, sir.
When I received that letter some time ago from Mr. Swan, I shared it with, by allowing other members of the national executive who are in positions like the chairperson and political leader and so. And I was advised at the time that the strategic committee will deal with that issue and respond to Mr. Swan. So I personally did not respond to him. While he wrote to me as General Secretary, I was told the strategic committee will deal with it. Whether or not the strategic committee dealt with it, I'm not sure, because I'm not a standing member of the strategic committee. I'm invited at times to strategic committee meetings based on what may be discussed, and my role as General Secretary, I might be able to provide the strategic committee with certain information. So I am invited from time to time.
Who is in charge of that strategic committee? Quickly, before.
Do what?
Who is in charge of that strategic committee? Is that something?
Well, the chairperson of the strategic committee is the political leader.
Oh, so the chairperson is Dr. Mitchell.
Yes.
Okay, and Dr. Mitchell did not respond because.
Well, I don't know. I can't say that.
You can't say. Okay. Yes, all right, but he's the chair of the strategic committee.
Of the strategic committee.
And that went to him. And okay, all right. But your second point. Go ahead. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you.
The second point was about something undemocratic.
Undemocratic, correct? Because he mentioned
as
names.
Mr. Swan alluded to in
Yes.
his letter, and I spoke of earlier on, the constitution of the party does not say who or how the process of choosing must take place. Now, I said to you, different constituencies would have used different methods. So, for example, at the time when I was a parliamentary rep, I would call together a couple of my PD captains or PD leads, as we would refer to them, or chairperson of the polling division, and we would sit in a short meeting and say, look, convention is coming, general council is coming, we need to get delegates. Are there any suggestions? Are there any persons in particular you believe should go to this one? And we may have a discourse. Of course, the final say would have been with me. So someone could have been suggested for PD1. And I may say, well, I don't believe that person is the best suited for this time for X, Y, or Z reason. Or another member who was in the meeting. There were instances where in some constituencies, the parliamentary rep or the political leader, whoever it was, may do it all by themselves. So the issue of saying it is undemocratic, what could be said is that it has not been the practice in this constituency for us to do it that way. But there is nothing about it that is undemocratic, because there is no set principle and way of doing it. There may have been a practice with a previous representative, and with a new person now, they may have taken a different trend. And that is why I said to you earlier on that one of the things that must be looked at in future, coming after the convention and so, is how do you amend the constitution to bring greater clarity or to put a structure within it, or to give within the constitution a group or a team of people the responsibility for selecting delegates or something. I mean, we have to put the minds at work to determine how best do you now put it, but you need to have a prescribed way, because as it is now, there is not clarity on who and how exactly you do the choosing of delegates.
And Mr. Bhola, as a follow-up there, I suspect that might be the same issue over in St. Patrick West as well?
May well be. I've been hearing about St. Patrick's West, but in this latest dispensation, nothing has been said to me or been written to me, or if they did, send me a correspondence, hasn't reached me as yet.
You said you have been hearing as General Secretary. Is that not something you might have wanted to inquire about?
Well, as General Secretary, I have met with St. Patrick's West several times. And if there's an issue that they now have, and to my understanding, it has been placed on Facebook or wherever, and they did not confront me directly.
Okay. So that might be another letter that might have been sent to the strategic committee headed by the political leader, Dr. Mitchell.
Maybe. I cannot say that they did send, because
Yes.
I am not aware of that.
Again, allegedly, I don't want to be sued by Dr. Mitchell, okay?
I don't know if you would sue you, but I can speak of the things that I am aware of.
And that you have control of.
And in to a certain extent, yes.
Yes, absolutely. Now, Mr. Bhola, let's talk about the nominations for the other positions in the party. For this particular convention, and you said earlier that perhaps you might be seeing what the delegates would say about your future role as General Secretary. Now, can delegates on the day nominate anyone from the floor to serve on the executive? What would that process look like?
Yes, the only position that we are not allowing, or hope not to allow on the day, to have nomination from the floor, but nomination from the list that has been provided of the people who had stated their intent, will be the position of political leader. Every other position can have nomination from the floor. Yes? And will have nomination from the floor, I believe. And even the people, the two people who have expressed their interest, a delegate still has to nominate them, but we're saying your choice of nomination must be from those who had applied or expressed their interest in being in the position. If the name is not there as a person who expressed interest for the position and has not been interviewed by the committee, then you can't then call a name from the floor and say, I want to nominate Roland Bhola as political leader. That's the only position there is a contention about, that you don't. But every other position...
But Mr. Bhola, what if somebody decides and insists that I want to nominate person X from
we discussed that earlier on,
as political leader? What?
We discussed that earlier on. We discussed that the process was set in place. We discussed that people had an opportunity and a time frame in which to express that interest. We discussed that whoever expressed that interest have been interviewed. So there was a whole process. So if anyone failed not to participate in these processes, then we don't believe that, because it would be unfair to those who took the time off and participated in the process.
Understood. Now, let us talk about the role of Dr. Mitchell. Of course, given the work of the committee, Dr. Mitchell did not offer himself to be screened. And officially, because, that has been the conversation du jour for a very long time. Whether, would he go? Would he stay? Would I stay? Should I stay? Or should I go? Maybe that might be the function of a subject of a calypso or something like that. But we know that Dr. Mitchell has decided, and he has said decidedly, that he will be exiting the stage, as I said in the intro. Now, what role has Dr. Mitchell played in all of this leadership transition process, Mr. Bhola? And has he exercised any veto power in the execution of your duties as General Secretary that has prevented you from fulfilling any of the obligations that you're obliged to fulfill as General Secretary?
I know I can't recall, or I can't say. He may have offered advice. He would have, at our executive meetings, pull from his wealth of experience what he thinks should or should not be. He's not a member of the transition committee. He may have offered advice at different times, or there may be times when faced with any particular issue that members of the committee might feel they needed added guidance. They may have gone to him saying, look, we have an issue here. How do you suggest we go forward? They have gone to legal minds, gone to different people. So he's not the only one that the transition committee would have reached out to for some kind of advice. So I believe he played his role. Some may argue that he probably went too far in some instances. There are those who believe that he probably should have stayed back a bit more and not be so upfront. There are those who feel that he should have done more, he should have done it earlier. So there are different schools of thought. But at the end of the day, I believe and I'm satisfied that he did what was asked of him, and he has kept true to what he said he would do, that he would not offer up himself again for re-election. And we're seeing that coming to fruition now.
Now, Mr. Bhola, why would members of the screening committee want to go to him for advice when ostensibly such a decision has to be an independent decision? Concerning the leadership transition process.
Yeah, but the leadership transition process was not just about speaking and interviewing people. You know. The leadership transition process started by dealing with how do we approach the thing, you know? What are the things we need to put in place? And it was through consultation, like I said before, he was not the only one. There were legal minds that was involved. There were persons who has nothing to do with NNP. I don't even want to call their names. Legal people who the transition committee reached out to and asked, how do you think we should frame that? How do you think we should do this? Why do you think that? There were even persons from outside of the country, sister parties in the region that was spoken to. So the consultation was wide, was varying. So Dr. Mitchell was not the only person. There may be a question or two. He has a historical perspective of the party. He has been the leader for 35 years or so. He has been there from the onset. He has been there when the party was formed. He has been the general secretary of the party, the very first general secretary the party ever had. So you expect someone like that to have a wealth of knowledge. So when there were issues that were related to the party and historical events and what transpired then, some of us who came into the party only recently and don't know, he, we believe, was the best. He is one of the very few people who are still around that were foundation members of the party.
Mm-hmm. Okay, and you said it, and what one of your comments leads me into the next question that I have, and that has to do with the post-convention environment of the new national party. Of course, Dr. Mitchell, as you said, was very upfront. His rhetoric was extremely bellicose in respect of not only shoring up his preference, as is his democratic right to do, to show up his preference for who he thinks should lead the party, but on the other hand, also reserving some of his most bellicose rhetoric for the other party who has offered himself up for leadership. Do you believe, Mr. Bhola, that has created some measure of tension within the organization that party would have to confront following the convention?
Maybe it did, maybe it did not. And if it did, Dr. Bob, it had not showed itself or manifested itself in a way that it is affecting the unity of the party. Because I hear a lot of talk about disunity and rumblings in the party and so. I have not seen it. I have not felt it. And as I've said on other programs and to other people, if you do have disagreement, this is politics. And this means it's healthy. It means that democracy is at work. The fact that one individual can disagree with the views of another individual, but at the end of the day, we can reach consensus on the matter. It shows that there is true democracy and democracy is alive. Because if it wasn't, some people would not have been able to talk or to express their views or to oppose the view of another person. So I don't subscribe to the fact that we have deep-seated disunity in the party. I will agree that there are robust discussions at times, that people are very energetic about what they do. After all, politics is a feature of conflict. Politics is where I try to imprint and impose my ideology, my belief, and the way I think things should go forward. You try to do the same. And so somewhere in the middle there is sometimes a clash. But what is important is that we are able to manage those disagreements. We are able to come to consensus. And we are able to consider each other's position and say, yes, you know, at the end of the day, while I felt strongly about that, I think your ideals will suit what we want to achieve and arrive at better than mine. And so we all take ownership. So there is no individual claim to fame or no individual burden for what went wrong. It is collective responsibility at the end of the day. But that does not prevent us from expressing very strongly, very fervently what our inner beliefs are about any single matter.
Okay, Mr. Bhola. So when Dr. Mitchell says, for example, that people who just joined the party, and of course he did not reference Mr. Peter David's name, but we know who he's talking about. Is that also a general consensus in the party that might be causing some tension? That here you have Mr. Peter David, who joined the party just over 10 years ago, almost 11 years ago, wants to suddenly offer himself. Well, that's at least what Dr. Mitchell said as well, that you want to offer yourself up for the leadership of the party. Is there a tension with having people like Mr. Peter David, like Mr. Chester Humphrey, like Mr. Kennedy Butler and others in the party? Is that an issue that came up in conversation?
As you mentioned Kennedy Butler, let me tell you, I did do research. I always thought so. I know Kennedy Butler has been a supporter of the party for a very long time. He was in, he was out, he came back in, he went out. You know, he moves. Kennedy Butler is like a rolling stone. But at present, he's not a card-bearing member of the party. But of course, his support is welcome. And as you said it correctly, you said we. I don't know who we refers to now. When Dr. Mitchell made his statement, you say we know he's talking about Peter David. Peter David has been in the party.
The context clues are very clear, Mr. Bhola. Mr. David is the only one that did not come from the bowel of the party. He joined the party.
Why did you say that?
He joined the party.
None of us in the party, with the exception of Dr. Mitchell, came from the bowels of the party. We all joined the party at some point in time.
Okay, so Dr. Mitchell is the only one that comes from the bowel of the party.
Right. He was there from the onset, if that's your description. And so, why would anyone wants to accept these kind of criticisms that you're talking about if your name wasn't called? Why would you accept that you are not from the bowels of the party? Can you offer an answer to that?
Well, no, I cannot, because I do not have a cap to draw that string.
All right, so I don't know. I mean, I hear it, I reflect on it, and I honestly believe that there are some discussions that must be left to be held in the engine room, in the back room, among the folks, and not be taken
among the executive of the party, is what you're saying,
right?
The rank and file, yes.
But at the same time, I don't know if Dr. Mitchell did not pinpoint an individual or call a name. And I know there are a lot of people who are going to say, "Oh, Bhola, you are a hypocrite." I'll accept that from them. But the fact is, if you say the bowels of the party, we all came after. The only person sitting within the party's executive at this time that was there from the onset, from the creation, is Dr. Mitchell himself. Maybe the next longest serving member of the party thereafter might be Gregory Bowen. So it is up to anyone who wants to accept that they're not from the bowels, so be it. I don't accept that.
You do not accept that?
No.
Okay. Now, Mr. Bhola, let us talk about your future role as General Secretary. I know that you are a passionate farmer from the breadbasket of St. Andrew. Might you be interested in giving up your role, or does the role of General Secretary give you that energy that you enjoy? Because even after, stepping away from ministerial responsibility in government, you continue to serve in the party. You might, in fact, be the longest serving General Secretary of the new National Party. Is that a role that you see yourself continuing in?
A role that I enjoy. It is very challenging, Dr. Bob.
Yes.
You get people who agree with some of your decisions, you get those who disagree. But that helps you to build as a person, to build yourself, to build your fortitude, to make you understand that the belief and the thought process of different people are different, and so it helps you in a way, or it helps me. Let me say, it helps me in a way to analyze the human being and understand them much better, because a lot of times we take a lot of things about human beings for granted, and it is only upon the time when you have to deal with them on a particular issue you get a full understanding of who that person is, what they do. So I like what I do as a general secretary. I like the challenges that it brings. It keeps me on my toes. It keeps me moving. It keeps me thinking. Maybe it keeps me a little young too, because although I'm growing, a lot of people keep telling me, boy, you look so young. What is it you're doing? I think it is the work as the general secretary. So I'm saying short, if the delegates so desire, or the delegates marked me, give me a pass mark, and felt that, okay, yes, in the dispensation of your duties, we believe that you have tried and you have done well enough, I'll accept it and go for another year or two if health permits. But if they said, well, we think we need somebody new, somebody fresh, somebody younger, whatever the reason, I'll also accept that and continue to be a member of the New National Party. I won't resign because I am no longer the general secretary. Yes, I may not be able to play the role up front as I'm playing now, but I'll still be there fighting as a good soldier for my party.
Mr. Bhola, I want to respect your time, so I would go over to you for some closing comments. And of course, Mr. Bhola, we're always happy to have you on the Bub Report. This is your first time. We hope to see you back again, not only to discuss politics, because I think every time we see you, for example, whether it's on To The Point, whether it's on Real FM, you also can offer very important perspectives on agriculture as well, given your role as an agriculturist. And so we would love to have you back.
And a former minister.
And a former minister as well, correct, as a former minister. So you have that institutional knowledge as well. Yes. So, Mr. Bhola, over to you now for some closing comments, sir.
Well, again, I want to thank you, Dr. Bob, and your team, for giving me the opportunity. As you've correctly said, at this particular moment, the timing is a little tight. There's still a few things here and there that we need to just finalize and to make sure that on the day itself that the operations of our convention run smoothly without too many hiccups or any major problem. So I'm still very busy trying to ensure that the different personnel who have different roles to play, that they're doing it and doing it properly. Let me now use this opportunity to wish you and your audience and your team a wonderful holiday season. Christmas is not very far away. It is a
right around the corner,
right?
And your party would be giving Grenada a new Christmas gift. Look at that.
Most likely so. Most likely so. I hope it's a gift that they would accept. But I remind myself and others who are within the party that coming after the convention, there would be a lot of work for us to do, to keep united, to keep together, to keep the party moving forward, because the opponent is a very formidable opponent, and we can't just sit and take things for granted and take the fact that a few people are saying that they are not as popular as they used to be a win for NNP. No, NNP has to create its own waves and its own win to get what we want. The only place where success comes before work is in the dictionary, and we're not in a dictionary now. We are in real life. So thank you.
It is not theoretical. It is realistic. Absolutely. It is practical. Absolutely. Viewers and listeners, Mr. Roland Bhola, we just concluded an interview with Mr. Roland Bhola, who is the General Secretary of the New National Party, giving us a lay of the land in advance of the party's convention this coming Sunday. Of course, a screening committee will be making an announcement in respect of what the leadership process would look like, having interviewed the two contenders for that. We will be watching that space and having conversations about that when it happens.
Size you, come back and start praising you for.
So
just do what your conscience, don't play games with the population because they'll figure you out. There are some of us believe we're smart and we could, we'll go on a program and use all kinds of nice things. I'm this and I'm that, I'm ready to do that. And And the people just, in a few days, they see you do something, they go,
Then take you
they're not
serious.
listening again. You lose them
Yeah,
because
yeah.
they realize all the games you're playing. And then people figure out, those of us in politics get figured out so easily, sometimes we don't even know when they figure out.
Definitely. Yes.
Candidates will be interviewed, those whom, and the committee will then recommend to the executive after the interviews are done with different persons. So I expect if there's going to be a change at the convention, that before the end of the week, there'll be one such meeting with the executive,
Right.
and the committee will have to report on any future. That's why I can't understand, if you're part of an organization, you adhere to the rules. I don't see how you could go out in the street and start saying, I am running for leader. What do you mean by that? So you by yourself then? This is your little shop. This is not a shop. It's a serious political organization. So you can't go out and say, I am running for leadership. No. I'm interested in leadership.
Yes.
And I abide by the rules of the party going forward. But not that I am running, and I am this, and I am that, and I am that, this, and I am, and I am. It doesn't work so. Very interesting. Very, very interesting.
So, Dr.
Should your loved ones pass on, they deserve to be treated with dignity. And at S.A. Johnson Funeral Home, we can provide you with that service. We can take you every step of the way during your sorrowful moments. When that need arises, call S.A. Johnson Funeral Home at 347-777-9797. That's 347-777-9797. S.A. Johnson Funeral Home is a Caribbean family-owned funeral home here in Brooklyn, providing funeral services, but in a dignified way. From cremation to burial to the repatriation of your loved ones, you don't have to go through the hassle, as we provide exceptional service that allows you to mourn and heal peacefully. For more information, visit our website, www.sajohnsonfuneral.org. Send us an email at sajfuneral@aol.com or call 347-777-9797. S.A. Johnson Funeral Home, because you deserve to be treated with dignity.
And viewers and listeners, welcome back to this special primetime edition of the Bob Report. We are happy that you can stay with us. And of course, for those of you who are watching, please do us a favor by liking and sharing this primetime edition of the Bob Report on a Thursday evening, no less. And so for the second segment of the program, we are joined by Dr. Bert Brathwaite. He's a longtime friend of Dr. Mitchell and a one-time advisor to the executive of the New National Party. Dr. Brathwaite famously fell out of grace with his old friend and the party in spectacular fashion when disciplinary action was taken against him earlier in May. Now, before the executive voted to bar Dr. Brathwaite from participating in executive meetings, he appeared on Calistro Farrier's The Narrative program, calling for his party to move towards the holding of a long overdue convention, which everyone should be given. And he also said in that interview that everyone should be given a free and open opportunity to vie for leadership. Of course, the party since announced its convention date for December 15th, but that convention continues to be mired in controversy, owing to the methodology that the party is using to determine who can contest its leadership. Now, we're happy to be joined by Dr. Brathwaite, who is making a second appearance, or probably his third appearance on the Bub Report. Dr. Brathwaite, welcome to the Bub Report again, sir.
Thank you very much, Skeller.
Yes, absolutely. Are you looking forward to Sunday? How are you getting ready for the December 15th convention in a few days?
No, I can't honestly say. Normally, at December, I'd be quite hyped up, but I cannot say that I am looking forward to it. because what has happened in recent days, weeks, months, years, really, and especially in more recent months, has truly saddened me. And there was no necessity for us to find ourselves in this position. There were those of us, a few of us, albeit, in the party who stressed, after the defeat in June 22, stressed the need for democratization to occur within the party and reorganization. And that we are clearly in a transitional phase of a number, either stood silent, and in a few cases, they preferred to stick with the status quo and make sure that there were basically no changes within the system. Hence, where we are today.
Mm-hmm. Now, Dr. Brathwaite, a lot of what your opening salvo articulated really speaks to my next question, and that has to do with this pre-selection process. It appears to be a leadership pre-selection process that attempts to gatekeep what the convention would look like, especially for the role of political leader at the top ticket. Of course, I just interviewed the General Secretary, Mr. Bhola, and he indicated that there is nothing in the Constitution that speaks to this process. So can you talk about the way that this screening committee is doing its work and in advance of the convention, and how do you think that will have an impact on the image and the functioning of the political organization moving forward? Of course, whoever is elected will have to contend with perhaps potential fissures that may exist in the party. Of course, Mr. Bhola's argument and the party's contention is having a committee in place is done in order to manage a proper transition from Dr. Mitchell to a new generation of leaders in the party, such that it would not be a chaotic process. What say you?
It's not so much what says me, but what says one of the leading legal luminaries in our country and a founder member of the party, no other than Dr. Larry Joseph, who has made it clear in a release that after it was requested of him to state various that basically, first and foremost, the existence of the very executive presently is unconstitutional. He made that clear. And then I would add, on top of that now, you turn around, you're unconstitutional. I thought after the executive heard that earlier this year, they might have started to think, perhaps got other legal opinions, perhaps they did, I don't know. But if they did and it was to the contrary, certainly it wasn't advertised. And so we are back, and now to add insult to injury, you go and you set up this special committee, selection committee, which has never existed in the past. And that, am I with you? Hello, am I with you?
Yes, Dr. Brathwaite, go ahead. I'm actually pulling up Dr. Lawrence Joseph's correspondence.
Sorry, yes. I wasn't sure.
So go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
So we find ourselves in a position in which these things have been set up without legal basis. And I would actually like to refer you back. I thought it was one of the most poignant moments of our 40th anniversary celebration. And I would like to quote directly from what Prime Minister Antony said. If you don't mind, just let me read exactly what.
Yes, go ahead. Go ahead.
He said, political parties must be treated as formal, transparent institutions because they are effectively public bodies, effectively public institutions. Therefore, the people who run these institutions must ensure that their actions are transparent, that they are rules-based, and that they serve the people. That the political party is capable of adapting and changing, whilst at the same time retaining its core principles. That embraces just about everything that we should have been about over the last 2.5 years, rather than what we have got up to, which, as far as I'm concerned, quite honestly, there's a lot of political machinations.
Mm-hmm. Now, let me, Dr. Brathwaite, of course, you've been an experienced hand in the New National Party. One may argue that you come from the bowel of the organization, because that is one of the theories of the case that is advanced by Dr. Mitchell, that whoever leads the party should be coming from the bowel of the party. Yeah, I suspect, as I discussed with Mr. Roland Bhola earlier, he did say, however, that he considers Dr. Mitchell the only person to be coming from the bowel of the party. So he sort of, I guess, rubbished the idea that Dr. Mitchell was, shall we say, directing his comments at any particular person. But let us speak specifically to what the letter says here. And of course, it says, and that is what the Constitution says. It says, clause 3, and this is all clause 3 of the Constitution of the New National Party. It says, it talks about all of the various roles that the National Convention should be electing, but then it goes on to say that clause 3, Article 5 gives the National Executive the responsibility for the day-to-day running of the party. He says it's important to note that clause 3, section D of Article 5 mandates that, with the exception of a few named officers, the National Executive shall be elected annually by the National Convention. Okay? And of course, he also makes the point that the National Convention is the supreme authority of the party. Yeah? And that the National Convention should meet at least once annually. And of course, he goes on and then he offers his opinion. He says, in my opinion, the present body which purports to take over the role of the National Executive of the party has no legitimacy. Yes? In other words, that screening committee, he's saying, has absolutely no legitimacy there. And then he goes on to say, the present body which purports to be by the National Executive of the party cannot introduce new rules which go against past practices of the party. It has never been the case since the establishment of the party over 39 years ago that a screening committee had to approve or disapprove any names for nominations to offices before elections at a national convention. Nominations are always open for legitimate members of the party. So in essence, Dr. Brathwaite, what your colleague, your NNP colleague here, Dr. Lawrence Joseph is saying, who of course he is a prominent legal practitioner in Grenada, he's saying that this exercise is illegitimate.
Yes, and I mean, I'm not a lawyer clearly, but I mean, if you read the Constitution, it's very simple. Here's where we miss the boat, Kellon. Here's where we miss the boat. Going back 2.5 years ago, when we called for democratization of the party, what happened in the party in the past conventions, in terms of all positions were nominated, and there was a nominator, there was a seconder, and then there was voting. And in the case, and I've attended every convention since in the 90s, and the post of political leader would be announced. So first of all, the chairperson would have announced that all the posts were vacant, all the posts on the national executive were vacant. And when you got around to the political leader, they would ask for nominations. As that call went out, someone would get up and say, I beg to nominate Very Honorable Dr. Keith Mitchell. And then a second person would get up and say, I beg to second that. And quickly following that, a third person would get up and say, I beg that nominations be closed. That is what happened over the years. No, everybody would smile and laugh and be happy and just be there awaiting the feature speech by our political leader at the end of the convention. I do not understand how some of my colleagues could not understand that this phase of the New National State Party had basically come to an end. When we were saying we were in a transitional phase. If they had done, at this point, started now to look and recognize that there was going to be, for the first time, forget the players for a moment, but there was going to be competition for the position of leader of the political party. As a matter of fact, the NP for St. George, Honorable Peter David, and others had Dr. Mitchell back in, I think it was around 2021, had asked for a committee to be set up to look for future look at the position of leadership of the party. And a number of people went to that meeting. So that goes back as far as that, but nothing really came out of that after that initial meeting. So what needed to happen is for us to look carefully in the Constitution. One of the things that should have happened at this point, rather than all the what you were hearing, what did you hear in these last 2 years? One moment you heard X person was his favorite person. And when I say heard, that was the talk around town. Then the next person was the favorite person, then a third and a fourth. What should have happened at that time? And I'm so confident that the party can get back to this stage. Like everything else, we have lost some time, but I don't think the elections are upon us in a few weeks or a few months. So we have time to correct it. What we need to do is think about what we have in the Constitution to handle the situation going forward. And there's a blueprint there from sister organizations, Kellogg. Sister organizations with a much longer political history than ours. In one case, I have been not quite studied, but I have been appraised of how they conduct their business. Their selection of delegates for the process is done 2 weeks. A convention is called, political leader and deputy political leader selected. Then the national, then the body meets, and the nominations from all the constituencies around the island are brought together, and that is the people who are nominated and seconded to be delegates for the various constituencies. We do not have a process like that in NNP. So I'm not sure how we go vote when up to a few days ago, perhaps yesterday I think it was, I was speaking to one of the candidates, and he did not have knowledge of the delegates that were going to be
So I did ask Mr. Bhola about that, and Mr. Bhola said it is not usually the best practice of the party to publish a delegates list. That is what he indicated.
But you did not.
My question to you.
You did have.
But my question. Yes, but my
just let me finish on that point.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
You didn't have to. We're not talking about publishing to the wider public, because there's some people who might be members of the party and don't know the.
So the membership of the party is what I mean, not to the public.
Oh, okay. But what should happen is this information should be available to the executive, and that information should be available to any potential candidates across the board, if they're 2, 3, 4. And they also have a process where the people who are nominated for political leader prior to the convention, there's a selection committee, and that's written into their constitution, which we don't have. Right? So when they come to their constitution, the people for political leader, deputy political leader, that's been decided who will go forward and contest those positions. That's decided. And all the delegates have to do that is decide who's political leader and I think. And that list is kept and is refreshed at some point in the year. If people leave, if people decide that they don't want to participate in the politics, and it allows for a smooth process. We need it. We need to have some significant modification of our process if we are going to conduct elections fairly.
Mm-hmm. So you are agreeing with Mr. Bhola, because one of the things Mr. Bhola said was that the delegate selection process is very subjective. It is not formulaic at all. And we saw that when Mr. Prescott Swan came out with a letter, essentially protesting the very subjective and opaque nature of the delegate selection process. In fact, what Mr. Bhola said was that the party's constitution is silent on that particular issue of the delegate selection process, which I suppose has been the bane of contention for a lot of the issues in the lead up to the convention.
Absolutely, absolutely. And that needed to be corrected. We have held the convention back for 2.5 years. We had more than enough time to get these types of things in place. But now to have this and then to go through, and it is not only in St. Patrick's East with Mr. Prescott Swan, who's himself a founding member of the party.
Yes.
But there were complaints in St. Patrick's West and elsewhere. And on the one hand, you have to ask yourself, do all the potential people who are going up for leadership of the party, are all of them having access to the same body of information? That has to be asked. That question has to be asked. Because I deeply believe in the democratic process, and indeed our political leader, one of the things that he can feel is a significant pillar in his legacy is the way he has handled the electoral process and democracy. When you have all the seats in a country and you leave power and the country moves on smoothly, that's especially in today's day and age, that's a significant feather in your cap. And I will continue to applaud our political leader for that and appeal to him to bring that same level of openness and fairness and transparency to democracy within the party.
Now, of course, Dr. Brathwaite, you were only disinvited from the executive meeting in May. I believe it was in May of this year. But my question to you is that an issue that came up? Again, these two issues, say, are process issues. I have two follow-up questions concerning not only the delegate issue, but the whole issue of the screening process. First and foremost, of course, you probably might have sat in the executive when either of these issues came up. Let's start with the screening committee business. Did that come up in executive meeting, in any of the executive meetings?
That was raised after, that matter came after I left. After you left.
After
it was expelled.
After you were, that's right.
Expelled from the executive.
Expelled from the executive, in which they said that you were there at the pleasure of the executive and not a duly elected executive member. But we're not going to rehash that. We did earlier. But what about the delegate selection process? Did that come up at all?
Well, I said during the time I was there was never, I can't say maybe mentioned in fine print, but there was no significant discussion, because what should have happened is some heads should have been put to sit down with some legal minds, probably go back to the same salary, and look at the process that we needed to get the party's constitution in a position that we could have a fair and open competition. because I can tell you, I can see what is going to happen down the road, but we can discuss that further based on what is happening.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And of course, there are some other other threads, other tea leaves that we need to read. Now, Dr. Brathwaite, in the lead up to the convention, of course, we know that the New National Party has been holding council meetings, zonal meetings, not zonal council, but zonal meetings every Thursday and Sunday across the country. And of course, as an opposition, I suspect they're doing what the opposition is expected to do by holding the government accountable and bringing those issues to the fore that needs to be brought to the fore in respect of analyzing the current NDC administration's performance in government. But a lot of that zonal council, zonal meetings also was bookended by very caustic and sharp attacks at one of the candidates who declared himself to be to have an interest in serving as leader of the party without mentioning his name. And of course, Mr. Bhola said, well, Dr. Mitchell didn't call any names or whatever the case might be. Clues tell otherwise. Now, can you react to Dr. Mitchell's public posture in the last couple of months? Was that something that you were seeing inside of the executive? Or were you really surprised? Did Dr. Mitchell's rhetoric really surprise you?
Well, I wouldn't want to say what I was seeing inside the executive, because although I'm no longer an invitee, I would not want to disclose what went on there.
Yes.
What I can say is what has gone on in public, what is open and
We seek the truth.
Would you be handing your resignation to the Minister of Culture tomorrow, sir?
No, I will not.
The leader of the opposition, you have accused your government, sir, of using the Grenada Development Bank to facilitate the financing of personal loans for certain government ministers.
The other side is in no position to talk about those issues, and I will leave it there.
We discover new perspectives.
You know his leadership style. And so many are saying, why are you coming now to talk about those issues?
Now is the time to speak. You have the right to decide who will take over.
And you met with Dr. Mitchell, and perhaps you might want to confirm what that meeting was about in your response. But
Dr. Mitchell, like myself, are Grenadians.
We ask the right questions.
why was there no report on the work done of the commission? And how is this new committee different from the commission that was initially established back in 2022? So who are these elements that are using you?
I'm disappointed in my political leader.
And why is that animating those political conversations now?
This is a very interesting question.
The Bub Reports with Dr. Kelon Bub. Thought-provoking, truthful, unbiased, and truly original reporting.
Ahead around the meetings. So go ahead from there.
Where were we?
You are about to answer the question about the meetings, the zonal meetings, and
Right.
Dr. Mitchell's bellicose rhetoric.
At these meetings and at the General Council, and on a number of occasions, there have been very unfortunate, I think, outbursts. And you know what hurts is that Mr. David being accused of a whole range of things. He's a troublemaker. He can't fit in. His ideology is not that of the parties. And I can comment on all those things because I've got to know Mr. David well in recent years. But really and truly, what has happened is that he has been openly, without names have not been called, but the people that are referring to it's obvious who was being referred to. And I have no objection to any person within the party bigging up whoever they think is the best person, the most fit person to lead the party. That's fine. But you don't seek to vilify and ridicule and even humiliate. Referring to the honorable NP as youth terms, and that's it's unbecoming. That's all I would say about that. It doesn't. It's a serious distraction. It defies the factor. I love the tone of Mr. David's speech on, I think it was given on Monday night. And I also listened to his interview with you. I love the tone. And indeed, and in fact, he has the ability, more so than any other politician in this island, to cause a greater unity across. People should be able to have their political views and still feel at ease to move with each other. I feel at ease to move with people who are opposite political, either supporters or members of. But that should be something across the board. And there's no a person who can do it better, as far as I'm concerned, than Mr. David. And he has a lot of other attributes that he brings to bear at this stage. His experience, and what he has done for the country, and to try to minimize the impact that he has had in terms of some major projects that he's brought in here, the Six Senses, the Continental Hotel, and the hotel up north, and his work in agriculture, and on what one can go. And just level the playing field and let people decide who they think is the best person to carry the country forward. That's what I say.
And of course, Dr. Brathwaite, one of the criticisms that has been leveled against Mr. David, that he's not an ideological fit for the new National Party. In fact, two of the guests who attended the banquet, the party's banquet, as well as their rally, they sort of burnished the ideological right-wing credentials of the new National Party. And it is felt as if Mr. David, and of course, without mentioning his name, but I think it's an insult to the intelligence of the Grenadian people that for you to say, well, I did not call any names, so who are you talking about? Well, there are only two people contesting the leadership, so we know that the reference here is to Mr. David, yes? That he's not ideologically, and that will be one of the questions for the screening committee, the ideological commitment, that right-wing ideological commitment that one ought to have if they ought to lead the party. So what say you on that question, that Mr. David is not the ideologue that the new National Party is expecting to lead them into the future?
That's an interesting point, because it is true that the party, NNP, has deep connections with the more conservative parties in the region, going back to the era with the Bushes, etc. However, having said,
Ronald Reagan, all Republicans, the NNP is affiliated with the party of Trump. Yes, go ahead. It's the Republican Party.
The Republican Party. Yeah, let's just leave it like that's Republican.
Yeah, yes, for now. Yes, that'll be another debate. Go ahead.
No, what however can be said is that Dr. Mitchell, in his own right, has been one of the most in the forefront of leading associations with Cuba. I think there was, we might have been the first to reopen contact, if not the first, certainly the second. We have joined ALBA. We moved from Taiwan to
China, Communist China.
Right. In 20, that would have been
2005.
2004 was the meeting.
2004, yes.
The delegation went over. I'm not sure exactly when the understanding would have been signed. So on and on you go. And so there's nothing in this day and age, this talk about right of center and left of center, there's a lot of nonsense, because both extremes, ultra right and ultra left, in my mind, are create a huge lots of problems for the public at large. And I do not see someone like Mr. David, and from my discussions with him on too many things, yes, he would have had connections in the past, but his views are very practically oriented. You this is a red herring. You know what needed to happen in the run up to this convention, other than what I've said to you. One of the things that needed to happen, we needed to have had, and I pushed for that. A lot of what I'm saying here are things that myself and just unfortunately a limited number of other folk on the executive push for. At executive meetings, what should have been happening is that the folk who are going up, potential leaders for the party, should have been involved in debates and discussions with either with the party members, or if it was thought fit, in the wider open community. And I would have expected in those debates things like, how are you going to handle this new era of artificial intelligence, which is going to have which will have so many ramifications on our community? How are you going to take the agricultural product of this country and try to renew it and recognize the importance that the healthiest food that we can have is the food that we produce here, and therefore we need to get that production up and to the market at prices that people can afford. I want to hear discussions of that type of level, not this character assassination and oftentimes, you know, what is interesting, I went back and I deliberately asked one or two people who were in the melee with Mr. David during the NDC period in 2011-13. And you know what one person said to me? One person whose voice and whose thoughts I appreciate said to me, respect is probably the better word, respect. He said to me, you know, Mr. David was one of the more passive people during this, the problems they had. So that is being also brought up to suggest that as a result, he is coming to NNP and he is causing that problem. But if I can tell you, if I were interested in becoming a political leader of NNP and I had to face some of what Mr. David faced, I would have been much more aggressive. Mr. David has made a point to try to avoid any rancor and confusion in the party, and he must be respected for that. These are the facts.
Well, except Dr. Mitchell, some of his allies do not think so. In fact, there is a narrative here that anywhere Mr. David goes, trouble follows him.
That is nonsense. I told you why we are facing trouble now, because we didn't have the guts. There were probably a few people who were being they had their own people urging them on to keep the status quo. There are a few in the party who have people urging them on to keep the status quo as it, but some from within the urge might be coming in limited ways from within the party and from outside of the party. And they chose to go that route. And now we find ourselves in this bind where whoever is selected as leader, will we be able to say that this was a free and fair election? And the other things that go beyond that, but that's up to be seen. But I'm very uncomfortable with the state of affairs, and this has resulted because we did not want to move outside of our little boxes we needed to thought abroad and wider. Do you know one of the things that has happened with the party is that a number of the better thinking minds in the party have not returned to the executive. Some good and sharp thinking minds who we need to help guide the younger folk who come into the party. They are still supporters of the party, but they have not been able to tolerate the to put it quite frankly, bluntly, the nonsense that they might have had to tolerate. Well, I am the type of person who would get up and tell them just what I think. And occasionally I did get up and tell them what I think within the executives.
Mm-hmm. Dr. Brathwaite, is there a fissure in the party? Is the party split down the middle? And what do you foresee following the convention, following December 15th? Yeah. How would the party confront what you just claimed to be some very undemocratic practices specific to the delegate selection process, or whether it is this committee that's going to screen whoever that one standout person will be that will be able to put their name up on Sunday? What would unity look like for your political party following December 15th?
Yeah, well, here I disagree with our political leader that after December 15th, it will be a joyous day. Yes, if the one of the candidates who our political leader is favoring, he may see it that way, but I do not think, honestly, that it will be a day of joy for the party because I think the battles of the party are not over. Because first and foremost, after the 15th, and a leader is selected, that leader, we will have to ask ourselves, will that leader be truly the person in front, or will that person be just a figurehead in the party? And that the true strength for the party will remain much as it is today. And fast forward to the next general election, if that was the scenario, I would predict, as the political person and Mr. Wickham said, as happens in other countries, what we are seeing here is happening in other countries. And I would predict that we have not seen any definite intention of a political leader to leave the political field, and that he would come back and he would be reinstalled as leader, because you don't have to be political leader. Remember that. You don't have to be political leader to lead the government. It would be the person who commands the majority.
The majority of the seats in parliament, yes.
Right. So that this, when you have a situation like that where you go to the election, and then after the election you still will be having to decide who will actually lead the country. It's not. It happens, but it's not the healthiest thing. So that is one of the scenarios the party has to face. If on the other hand, and Mr. David were to win, clearly he will have to bring try his best to bring, and I'm sure you would be able to do it. He will be able to do it. He's not a person that I've sensed, and as I told you, I've got to know him well, is holding any anger about people. The hostilities have been thrown at him, and he would have to do that, but the odds are highly stacked against him. This process.
What about Mrs. Emmeline Pay? How do you perceive her role as a unifier if, in fact, she becomes the leader?
Yeah,
or the committee selects her to go forward to be the leader of the party at following their announcement tomorrow?
Yeah, well, Mrs. Pear is a person who's been with the party for a while. She's worked hard. She's produced results. She's been important for the public relations of the party. She's a credible person to stand up for leadership. What I hope the goodly and godly indeed person, because we know one of the hats that she wears, would recognize is this process a fair one? This is a question she will have to answer herself. And when it is all over and said and done, she will be, she could possibly come out as leader, and if she came out as leader, then she has to try to woo back the other forces. But this is not probably going to be the last convention before election anyhow. So hopefully, even if we didn't get it right this time, by the time the next election, they would have opened up the process and they would have ensured that the whole electoral process is a much more open and fair one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Now, Dr. Brathwaite, of course, and I did ask the General Secretary this question as well. Now, as I said before, it is clear, and as many people have said in your own organization, the NNP, that the party will not allow nominations from the floor on Sunday. Now, what happens if somebody still goes against the grain and says, you know what, I will proceed with nominating someone from the floor? What happens there?
That would be very interesting. I honestly don't know what will happen, because it is the history of the party. Nothing has been changed in the constitution, as far as I'm concerned, and as Larry has said, to prevent that. One of the questions you did ask, just one of the points you were raising is about the party. Whilst the party, there's division in terms of who people are supporting, but certainly from my perspective, I'm not hostile to anyone, and I don't encourage people to be hostile to other groups. If you tell me nonsense, when I go to the meeting, I will give you a piece of what I think, right? Mm-hmm. And after that, we can sit down and have a drink, because I hope to bring you around to let you be able to see the light at the end of the tunnel. Listen, we face so many challenges going down the road. This is not the time. This world is going through a very uncertain time. One sees the impact of inflation. Inflation has a significant power. I don't want a situation where the present government, its weaknesses are obvious. And if a chance an MP is thrown back, I want to know we have a strong party there to run it. And here's one of the things, Kellen, in 2013 to 18 period, that was one of the best periods of governance I would maintain that I have seen in any Caribbean island. I've lived in a number and followed the politics in many of them. And why was that so? Because you had people coming in, the very people, Peter David and many other of his associates came into the party and strengthened the party. And that is why that period of governance was one of the best in my life in any Caribbean country. Fast forward then to the 2018 to 2022 period. You had COVID. It was thought that the government handled COVID well, but yet we lost the election. So if you lose the election against a background where you had the most important thing, well, the question was to go back and ask yourself, what have you done wrong? And as Mr. Wickham said in his interview, he produced a report that I certainly, in the time I was on the executive, never heard or saw that report. And certainly the in-depth look at what went wrong in the party, as far as I'm concerned, that in-depth analysis and the corrective measures, because you can't have situations where people from outside of the party are having, people who didn't go to the electorate are having a significant rated impact on the face of government. If you do that, and you create as Andrew Jackson, one of your famous presidents, I think the term was first coined then. You have your kitchen cabinet, then it is not the best thing going forward. So these are the type of issues that we should be dealing with, looking at our weaknesses and repairing them and setting up the pathway to take this country forward.
Dr. Brathwaite, will you be attending the convention?
Yes, I will be. And I can openly say I'll be going as a delegate for the town of St. George. I've been asked to be a delegate for the town of St. George.
You have been asked by whom? That's the
party branch. I've been selected by the party.
The constituency branch. Okay, so you were selected as a delegate, so you will be there. Okay. Yeah. Has there been any issues in the delegate process in the town of St. George, or is that only an issue that's sort of restricted to the north of the island?
Well, I don't know. There's only the North of the Island. There've been a number of quarries in other places. Not to the best of my knowledge. Not to the best of my knowledge.
Not to the best of your knowledge. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Very well. And what about your relationship with Dr. Mitchell? Since that very public spat, he made some very tersely worded comments in a GBN Beyond the Headlines interview. But that is as much as he said. He didn't comment much on your public posture, your most recent public posture. But what's your relationship with Dr. Mitchell? You've known this gentleman for almost all of your life, sir. Since you were a young adult, you've known each other.
I remain very close to Dr. Mitchell's family. And with Dr. Mitchell, we do not exchange communications on political matters.
But do you exchange communication at all?
When we see publicly, yes, we greet others. We be in conversation. I hold no anger to Dr. Mitchell because I think he knows me. He's known me for 50 years, so he knows that the principles on which I'm going to stand. And if he's on the right side of it, I'm going to say he's on the right side. If he's on the wrong side, I'm going to say he's on the wrong side.
Take us into the mind of your dear friend. What happens when one expresses a difference of opinion to your friend? What happens there?
Normally, I would not have expressed a difference of opinion in public. But after 2 years of trying to push the party in certain directions, I felt the time had come to exert some more pressure because it was getting nowhere from within. And now experience has shown us that indeed, in fact, those of us who were pushing for certain changes should have been. But in terms of getting into the mind, I think you better put that one to those who are closer to him.
Well, I mean, you were close to him for many years. I can't imagine that there wasn't an occasion when you disagreed with him.
But let me say, we'll give you a scenario. During in 2021, in 2020, I became chairman of the COVID committee. COVID committee ran smoothly until for the first few months I was there. And then we had some hiccups, which I won't go into again because I consider those things confidential in terms of general public. But I went to Dr. Mitchell. I went up to his home in the morning. I said, I need to chat with you. And I pointed out to him where I think I wasn't getting traction and the committee wasn't getting traction. And I just said, I figure in a setting like this, I must resign. And so the next morning, as he got into office, and he would have received an email, said that I resigned as chairman of the committee. And that was just after the major Delta outbreak in 21. So, and that did not hamper our relationship in any way because he understood that. But I hope he understood the position that I was taking, and it wasn't done out of any act of hostility, but it was done because I didn't think I could act in the best interest of the country the way things were going anyway. So I left it for somebody else to come and pick up the thing. As it turned out, that committee never functioned much more after that because after that Omicron came and the decision was made, a correct decision, may I say, to open up the country to they open up the movements in the country. It's the correct decision.
And remove the restrictions and the quarantine restrictions and things like that.
So that we have had a very open. We could sit and we could argue, we can discuss things, and that's the way it should be. Not going to see eye to eye on everything, but when it comes if it comes to a point where I think that the facts are being distorted, and you're weighting things towards a side unfairly, well, this is where I speak up. And when it comes to not making changes that are so vital for the party, if the party is, I don't want to see NNP in a position where we win the government by default because the other party didn't perform and people got this. I want to know or be confident that people see a party that is fully packed, fully organized, fully charged. And I think, honestly, that the best person to do that we see today is Honorable Peter David. There's no doubt in my mind that he's the best person to carry this party through the next term of government. And I really want to thank him, Mr. David, for the contribution that he's made to the party and to the country. And irrespective of the outcome of this of this convention coming up, I hope he remains steadfast in his support for the party and continues to give us energy. You have to sit and listen to people discuss issues and talk about matters to know their capacity to lead and in terms of charisma and his outreach to people. He's one of the people. Actually, one of his problems that he will face if he were to find himself leading the country is that he appeals to people from both sides of the political fence. So he's going to be overwhelmed. He's going to be overwhelmed because I don't know how he will manage it. But he had to find a way if he was given that opportunity. Yeah,
absolutely, Dr. Brathwaite. Well, thank you, sir, for appearing on this primetime edition of the Bub Report. Is there anything by way of parting words that you want to leave with our audience?
Well, just to say that I would like to reassure people that political parties go through these phases from time to time. There's now a generational change within the party. We, the older ones, have to be prepared to sit back and not just make the younger ones figureheads, but genuinely have them, because we have lost some good people in this 2.5 years. Well, if not lost, sidelined some good people. Let me put it that way. And we nevertheless we will do whatever we can within the party to make sure that the party is there to be of service to the people and to be in a position to be able to provide the best of governance to the country in a very, really, really the most uncertain period of my life in terms of governance of countries. We see what is happening worldwide, and I'm confident that despite the challenges that we face, that we will be able to iron them out, and it will be tough and rough and tumble and whatnot, but that's the name of the game. I just want to see, as people of my generation pass on, that this country is in a position to have its people be able to be further uplifted and to be in better positions and to be able to go there and spread the wings and the standard of living continue to improve and the works. That's my wish.
Absolutely. Dr. Brathwaite, thank you so much for appearing on this week's edition, this primetime edition of the Bub Report.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Viewers and listeners, that was Dr. Bert Brathwaite. He is, of course, a delegate to the National Convention of the new National Party that will be happening on Sunday, December 15th. That's this coming Sunday at the St. Andrew Anglican Secondary School in Telescope. Of course, we'll be keeping a close eye on developments related to that event, and we'll be bringing you key updates there on the next edition of the Bub Report, which is this coming Sunday, where we will be sitting with Mr. Alan Chassenet as well as Mr. Peter Wickham. We're also going to be having a conversation with Mr. Anselm Clouden, who is expected to give us a timely update on some hydrocarbon matters affecting the state of Grenada. So, viewers and listeners, again, thank you for watching this very special primetime edition of the Bub Report. I'm your humble host, Dr. Kellen Bub. We will see you Sunday at 10 a.m. for a regular streaming of the Bub Report. Thanks for watching. Hi, everyone. Thanks for checking out the Bub Report's social media pages. If you'd like to get more videos, show highlights, and watch our weekly live show, follow our Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram pages, and also subscribe to our YouTube channel. You can catch repeat episodes on Wednesdays at 4 and 5 p.m. respectively on CRFM Radio and GBN TV in Grenada. We are also viewed on Sundays at 8 p.m. on WPG 10 throughout the Caribbean. Thanks for watching.